It was one of the most informative and helpful jobs that I've had. Working with all sorts of people, working with the UAW, a brake manufacturing facility, second shift, 2:30 to midnight. So the instrument itself would be under the engineering space, where you would have mechanical engineering inventions and you would have electrical engineering inventions or optics software associated with it. Also, those same companies would have chemistry inventions and then also bio. You have startups in the Bay. They're going to file a lot of patents because the patents are very, very important to protecting their core technologies. There's a direct correlation between the startup money and ensuring that the investors have some security that the intellectual property is protected. And so they have to protect their core assets because otherwise somebody else could come in and take it.
This is The Litigator's Edge, the podcast where smart strategy, practical innovation, and real-world experience come together to move litigation forward. Each week, we sit down with attorneys, legal tech leaders, and trusted advisors who are rethinking how great legal work gets done. You'll hear how law firms are building a competitive advantage. These conversations are grounded, insightful, and designed to help you refine how you work and how you win. Here is your host, Aniket Sawant.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of The Litigator's Edge, the podcast where innovative attorneys reveal the strategies that have transformed their legal practice. My name is Aniket Sawant, and I'm co-founder and CEO of Threadio. My guest today is a go-to intellectual property advisor for many of the world's leading innovators. What makes his perspective so unique is that his journey to advising Fortune 500 companies began not in a law library, but on the factory floor as a first-line supervisor for UAW employees, giving him a ground floor understanding of how great ideas become real-world products. It's my pleasure to welcome Matt George to the podcast. Welcome, Matt, and thank you for being here.
Hello.
Matt, well, I wanted to start by asking you the question that I ask every attorney who I have the privilege of speaking with, which is I ask every attorney to share either a fun fact about themselves or a cringe joke. Which will it be for you and what is it?
I think we'll go with a fun fact. Something about me is that I grew up in Michigan, and I summered in Traverse City for most of the time growing up, and I've been spending a bit of time up there visiting my parents over the years and over the summers since.
That's great. The next question I always like to ask is every attorney who makes the time to be on the podcast, I consider them to be a superhero because of all the things they've done. And every superhero has an origin story. What's yours?
So I think the origin story starts out with my college. And, I started out going to business school and at Michigan State University. And as I was at Michigan State, my stepdad, who was working in the automotive industry, suggested that I might go into engineering. I think probably because of the more opportunities in engineering, but also that I grew up in high school, like working on cars with my friends in their garages. And so it was a kind of a natural fit. And once I was in the engineering program, I have no lawyers in my family and not really family friends that are lawyers, but we did have an opportunity through the ASME program, which is a mechanical engineering society, that a group of lawyers from Detroit came and talked about IP law and patent law. And then once I learned about that and how interesting it could be, like being able to live in a large city, also able to work with all sorts of different technologies and be also kind of on the business end of things as well, which is what I initially started with undergrad with. I thought it was a good fit. And so I kind of pursued that after that. And so it's kind of my work story.
That makes sense. So where does the working for the automotive manufacturer and being on the front lines, where does that fit into your trajectory?
I think it was one of the most informative and helpful jobs that I've had. It was working with all sorts of types of people, all different ages, all different personalities. And, working with the UAW, we were working in a brake manufacturing facility. And so they were doing wet and dry machining of brake corner assemblies, which is a part of a car that holds the tire, and then also the assembly of those brake corners. And so I think being able to work with all sorts of personalities, all types of people is something that is really benefited me throughout my so far. Yeah. Yeah.
That
And
sounds
very
great.
hard work too. It was second shift. That was
No,
tough.
that's great. Yeah, second shift would be like what, 4 p.m. to midnight or something like that?
2:30 to midnight.
Oh wow, it's a long shift.
2:30 to midnight. One of the greatest benefits of working there was that nobody wanted to work overtime. And since I was planning on going to law school, I was very happy to work all this overtime. So I saved a bunch of money to go to law school.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's certainly an innovative way of
Yeah, it
of
was
working.
a
Pardon
perk.
the pun.
It was a
Yeah.
perk. It was a perk. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So maybe Matt, can you please walk us through your trajectory through and after law school, right up to where you are today, just at a high level?
Sure. And so when I graduated law school, I started working at a smaller boutique in Chicago. I worked there for 11 years and partnered after about 5 years there, mainly working on patent preparation and prosecution, which is working to obtain patents for companies. A lot of the companies that I worked with were larger entity companies that were in all sorts of spaces, a lot of aerospace, automotive, and heavy machinery type work, as well as design patent applications. After being there for the 11 years, like I mentioned, I was looking for a little bit of a change, a little bit a larger of a platform to be able to grow a book of business with. And so then I moved to Marshall Gerstein. One of the things that really attracted me to Marshall Gerstein was the large science practice that they had. And so science being biology and also chemistry practice. And so to support these types of clients that would be like engineering meets science type of biotech type companies. And so I've been here since 2018. That's kind of the trajectory so far.
That's great. I have a couple of follow-up questions on that. Thank you for sharing that, Matt. So one is, has the entirety of your practice been in IP litigation, or not IP litigation, IP practice, or did you start off with sort of a more general exposure, or has it been in intellectual property the whole time?
It started out doing really patent preparation and prosecution only. And since then, it's expanded into additional areas of patents. And so it would be more counseling work, which would be some related to landscape work, patent landscape work, freedom to operate, due diligence projects, non-infringements, and invalidity positions. And as the needs of the clients grow, also expanding into licensing work, agreements work, trademarks, and pre-litigation. And so all under the IP umbrella, but the services that I'm involved in, or the services the clients are needing is expanding as time goes on.
That's great. Let's go back to something you mentioned just a couple of minutes ago, which is that you work with clients that are in the quote unquote engineering meets science space. Can you
Yeah.
speak a little bit about the nature of your clients, the work that you kind of do with them, and what engineering meets science actually means and what it covers?
Sure. A lot of the clients that I'm working with are biotech type companies. And so those companies have they're making different types of products. And so some of those products will be in the engineering space, such as an instrument that would have consumables and have optics and software. So the instrument itself would be under the engineering space, where you would have mechanical engineering inventions and you would have electrical engineering inventions or optics software associated with it. Also, those same companies would have chemistry inventions and then also bio. And so when you're working with those types of companies, you need to have have cross-disciplinary teams. So you have a point on the electrical side, a point on the bio side, a point on the chemical side, and so forth. And so we have a lot of calls with clients where everybody might be on the phone, just because the technology requires expertise in mechanical engineering, software engineering, or computer science, and then also biology, for example.
That's pretty cool. Actually, as you were sharing that, Matt, it reminded me of my own PhD days when I used to work a lot with gas chromatograph mass spectrometers, GCMSs and
Yes. Yeah,
LCMSs.
we
So
do a
is that
lot of that type of, yeah.
so? Would that fall into the because there's engineering obviously involved in the equipment itself, but then there's all these chemicals that you have to put into the systems, and obviously,
Exactly that.
that's great.
Exactly that. Yeah, that's exactly that. Yep.
That's fantastic. You mentioned building cross-disciplinary teams for clients. So what are some of the clients that you work with, and at a high level, what are some of the sort of unique works that you've maybe patented for them?
One of the clients that I work a lot with is in the gene sequencing space. And so there's a lot of innovation associated with the instruments themselves, the consumables, the software, AI associated with the software and things of that nature. Also do a lot of university work, and that university work comes in different areas as well. As an example, we're helping universities patent AI or large language model type inventions, medical device type inventions, and then also small molecule type inventions. And so having different team members that can help the clients depending on what they need is kind of the key.
Got it. Um, how does the work that you do for a university client differ from maybe the work that you would do for a private company or even a public company?
I think it's about the same. With a university type client, I think that there are a lot of times with university clients will also be involved in out licensing. And so, depending on the needs of the university, we would help them out license or launch a startup, work with the agreement work there. Whereas with a corporate client, they would be using the patented technology themselves. And so like the scope of the work can kind of change, I think, but the idea is similar. We're attempting to obtain patent coverage and good scope for on an invention. I guess that there is always some differences, but they could be just understanding the business needs or what the goals are. And so I would say similar.
Got it.
Mhm.
A couple of minutes ago, you mentioned the various types of work that you do. So you mentioned patent prosecution and strategy, you mentioned invalidity, and you mentioned patent landscape. Can you maybe, for those who are not familiar with those terms, can you maybe share a high level overview of what that means and the kind of work that you do?
Sure. A patent landscape search would be, or a project would be associated with working with a company they're trying to develop a new product, and they're in the early phases of developing that product. And so they have some ideas related to what they want to do. But before they get going and before they invest too much in the development phase, just want to make sure that there aren't any IP or patents of their competitors that would pose a problem. And so when you do a patent landscape search, you're looking for some white space that you can develop in without running into IP problems from competitors. An invalidity opinion would be related to looking at likely a competitor's patent and developing positions related to other pieces of prior art that's found that would say that, well, that competitor is not entitled to a patent or entitled to that patent. And there's some proceedings that you can do after that to attempt to invalidate that patent, such as a reexamination, ex parte reexamination proceeding, which is a filing with the patent office to attempt to invalidate a patent if the client chooses to go that direction. You could also pursue an IPR, which is another avenue to go.
Makes sense. Um, moving sort of to more of the client relationship side of things. So your bio describes you as a go-to intellectual property advisor and trusted counselor. And so that's not something that one just can command. It's earned over time. And so how did you sort of step into the role of eventually becoming a trusted counselor to so many innovative companies across the country? And so if for a younger attorney, what should they be thinking about from that sort of soft skills and relationship perspective?
I think that the main thing that I focus on, with the practice is, doing good work and also being responsive to the clients. I care about the people I work with, and I try and help them. I'm also friends with most people that I work with on the client side, and so there is business relationships but it kind of merged into personal relationships as well. And so I think that trust is not always just built from doing a good memo. It's also knowing that they'll be there and responsive. And so those are some things that I've done. Yeah. And, spending time with people.
That's great. So now maybe thinking about, the sweep of your career and your practice and all the things that you've seen throughout, what are some trends that you've seen in the roughly 2 decades or so that you've been in the industry in terms of, patent protections and how the US Patent Office is looking at patents, and then also, accelerating or not technology trends that you've seen?
Yeah. I mean, it's similar. You have startups in the Bay. They're going to file a lot of patents because the patents are very, very important to protecting their core technologies.
Yeah. So
They've
that's
been doing
interesting.
that's what patents exist.
Right. No, that's interesting. So as you were saying that, Matt, I was thinking about there be then a correlation almost between business/investment cycles for the startups, and then when they file. So like, hey, somebody launches a startup, raise a whole bunch of money, and then one of the things that they have to do is defend their technology. So they go
Yeah.
out and file these patents, and then
Yeah.
depending on the outcome of the startup, either it's kind of stable or it grows, or it
Yes,
falls.
absolutely. Yeah, there's a direct correlation between the startup money and ensuring that the investors have some security that the intellectual property is protected. And so they have to protect their core assets because otherwise somebody else could come in and take it. There's definitely cycles. An established company comes up with a new product. They're going to be filing lots of patents on that new product to ensure that their IP is protected. And the cycles are related to initially doing a landscape search to understand where the white space is so that the engineers can innovate in a space that the companies has freedom to operate, or they're not going to be sued by competitors. They come up with the new device or instrument, then the patents are filed on the instrument. As things go forward, there'll be patents identified by the competitors that may or may not pose a problem, that may change the design. The engineers may have to design around that innovation, or alternatively, maybe pursue an opinion related to the invalidity of the patent if there is no way around it. So there's kind of a bit of a cycle, but it's very important to companies to be on the startup side or on the more established companies to be protecting their innovations.
That makes a lot of sense. So,
And that's been pretty consistent through my career.
yeah, and so that's the key insight for me at least, and I'm willing to bet for many of our audience members that even though the specific technology trends might vary from year to year or decade to decade,
Yeah.
the manner in which they sort of the ebb and flow has been essentially consistent.
Yeah, it's the technology can change, but the practice is similar. If you think of like patents as a patent law, which would be under corporate law, it would be, and patent law being related to property rights. And so it'd be like ensuring that the companies have property rights in their inventions.
Makes sense. Switching gears a little bit, Matt, from the innovative work that your clients do to the use of innovation in your own legal practice, specifically AI. So off air, we spoke a little bit about the fact that there's a heavy use of AI or significant use of AI within your legal practice. Can you maybe speak to that a little bit
Yeah,
about yourself and the firm?
sure. And so with myself, been using AI quite a bit and it's really one specific thing, which is prior art searching. And so what I've been using it for is in these invalidity type proceedings, such as re-exams or developing invalidity positions for litigation, is using ChatGPT. And it's a very, very powerful tool to identify prior art. You can even use it for image searching. And so like an example is like you could feed ChatGPT a design patent application from South Korea. ChatGPT will identify a YouTube video where that product is being reviewed before before a date that you give it. And so you could say, I would like to identify a YouTube video before 2011 that, where this Korean design patent application is, reviewed, and it comes up with it. And it's like needle in a haystack type things. And it's very, very amazing. Also very powerful with reviewing large documents. And so again, and these are all public documents, nothing client sensitive, but say a manual that was, available from 2017, 300, 400 pages, it will help you identify passages or quotes within that very large document to help with, I'm speaking specifically with invalidity positions, but it's very, very effective at making the practice more efficient, in my opinion.
That's fascinating. I think the second, the large document analysis is sort of a fairly now more mainstream use case. The first one, at least, is newer to me, which is because it seemed like a complex ask. Hey, interpret this image and then link it to YouTube or other resources. Look at this resource, link it to identify another resource, and draw the connection between the two, which is, and they're
Yeah,
both non-text. Yeah.
it's fascinating. You could even use it for like a patent claim has clauses, and you could ask the ChatGPT to find a reference. So it'd be like a magazine article that would only have it would describe one clause of that reference, and you can also ask the the AI to ignore portions of it. And so if you say some of the words might not be important, you could say, please find an article before 2015 that has, this following clause, but feel free to ignore this portion of the clause if needed. And these are PDF documents. There's no hallucinations. They're PDF documents that are available on the internet that it identifies. And so very, very powerful.
That's fascinating. You mentioned something which is a great segue into my next question, which is, you said no hallucinations, right? And so one of the challenges in many areas of legal practice, and I'm sure you've seen this on LinkedIn, is all the fake citations and all of that. And so I'm thinking, your experience with the use of ChatGPT, is essentially in the field of research, meaning you're looking for
Yeah.
things, and research is also the area which has, at least from what I've seen on LinkedIn and so forth, the highest amount of like red flags in terms of what people do. Do you have maybe some ideas on, are you doing things in a way that causes it to not hallucinate? Because we see a lot of oh my gosh, there's so many fake citations, and people get
I think
censored.
so. I don't know if I'm doing it differently than anybody else, but I am asking it specific questions. And so, for example, with the 400-page document example, if you ask for, does this document teach, A, B, and C, it will give you a summary of what it thinks. And that summary could be wrong because it's a summary. It's not a quote. And so what I would do is it would say like, page 33. I'd look at page 33 and I'm like, it actually doesn't say that specifically. I would like it to, but it doesn't. And so you go back to the GPT and say, please provide quotes.
Right.
Quotes from the document. Quotes, the quotes from the PDF document. Do not summarize anything for me. I don't want a summary. I can read the passages myself, but I would just like passages from the document itself.
Got it. So you use it as more of an interactive sort of tool where it might give you something and you may not be perfectly happy with the outcome, and so you sort of steer it.
It's an iterative. I use it as a tool for research and specifically for prior art research for these re-exam proceedings or like invalidity positions. I've also tried to use it for case law, finding case law, and it's pretty good at that. But one thing I've noticed that if you push it enough, it will come up with a case that doesn't exist. And then going back to requesting the PDF document and then asking for direct quotes from that PDF document has been a better approach for me, at least.
Yeah, that's great, because when it knows the search space, it does a much better job than when you're asking it to do open-ended research. There are some other tools that are maybe a little bit better at that, but if you just ask it open-ended, go find me this and innovations related to this or that, it may make stuff up.
Right. Yeah, just making sure that the AI gives you the source material. And be at a website, give me the Wayback Machine link to the 2014 materials, please give me that.
Right. Well, Matt, this has been a great conversation. I just want to wrap it up with a few closing questions. So if you had to give advice to a younger attorney who's maybe interested in patent law and looking to build up their way to becoming that trusted counselor and the knowledgeable counselor who can actually help, innovative companies in the manner that you do, what guidance or advice would you have?
I think I give them two suggestions. One of them is to work hard. It's going to take a lot of hours to understand the material, seek out mentors. A lot of the successes I feel I have are based on advice that people that I work with now or just people in my life have given me. Always seek advice of others, and also maintain a broad network of people that you know, and because that network, you're going to be able to help them, and they're going to be able to help you, and it makes working I think better. And that's just advice in any industry. And so the legal industry is no different than any other business industry.
That's great. We'll come back to a couple of those points in just a second that you mentioned. So, switching gears, and if you were to provide advice to engineers, innovators, inventors among the prospective clients or the actual clients that you do have, what should they be thinking about in terms of documenting or just sort of proactively thinking about from day one in order to make their life easier and your life easier whenever they have to build out a more defensible?
I think that the biggest, the best advice there would be to always involve legal before you sell things, involve legal before you show customers the product, involve legal early on, and they can guide you through the path. The main things that sometimes people get in trouble with is in showing the products, talking about the products outside of the company before the patent protection is obtained. That can pose some problems. So, saying certain types of things in emails. And so, yeah, for the most part, just involving legal early on, having a good relationship, making sure that they're looped in in all of the phases it would be the best.
Practical advice for sure. So you mentioned mentoring and community and the importance of building a network, when one is early on in their career and indeed throughout the course of one's career. But you also are involved in mentorship yourself, giving of your time as a mentor, helping build community and networks. Can you maybe speak to the work that you're doing in that space?
Sure. One of I think the most exciting things I've been doing lately is with the Hispanic Lawyers Association of Illinois, HLAI. We put together the IP section within the last year or two, and that is a group in Chicago. And one of our initiatives is called Patents and Pancakes. It's a monthly breakfast that we have here in Chicago. It's the first Thursday or second Thursday of the month, depending on the month. And it's a nice way for practicing lawyers to get together, and also a lot of law students, and also engineers. Engineers are coming as well. And so it's just a nice informal way for people to get together and meet each other.
Yeah.
And we can talk, there's some mentoring associated with it, but it doesn't have to be work related. It can just be breakfast as well.
That's great. So if there's anybody out there who's listening and who's interested in having an interesting conversation on patent law and wants to have a good pancake or two.
Yeah. In Chicago. That's what it's in Chicago. You got to come to Chicago for it.
That sounds awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation, Matt. I learned a lot. And I'm sure our audience has as well. Final question for you. Is there a question that I should have asked you, but I didn't?
I think so. I think you did great.
All right. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for your time, Matt. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure our audience will as well. So,
thank you so much.
The Litigator's Edge podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.